MLS globally. To quote the tweet from our good friend Will Forbes.
Oh.
Don Garber said that MLS would be a top 5 league in 2022 by 2015. I'm sorry, by 2022 in 2015. Do you agree that we are top 5 right now?
No, that's easy. We're not
even a little bit.
No.
Okay, let's go back then. We are not a top 5 league in the world right now. Where are we?
So I like to kind of look at the leagues around the world in like tiers. So obviously you have your top 5: England, Spain, Italy, Germany, France, top 5. I think the tier right below them, I would say personally, it's like Portugal, Netherlands, Belgium, maybe Russia and Turkey. Maybe Austria. Austria's kind of Austria and Switzerland kind of in between. And I'm just looking at this from a European perspective right now. I know obviously like the South American leagues as well factor in here. And then I feel like the tier below that is where I feel like MLS gets a lot of comparisons usually. I would say like some of the more top tier second divisions, like the championship or like the Bundesliga 2. So I think that's typically where a lot of people compare MLS level, maybe even like the Scottish league in there as well. I think that's pretty fair. I would say, me personally, I think if we are in that group, I think we're on the upper end of it. Also more towards like the lower end of the tier above that. Maybe not necessarily as good as like the Austrian league per se, but maybe somewhat competitive with them. If you had asked me this question 10 years ago, I would have said we were probably like a tier below where we are right now. But I think MLS teams could compete in the championship. I think they could compete with, I mean, we're starting to finally see now they could start to compete with teams in Mexico. I think they could compete with teams in the second Bundesliga. But I still think we're like a step below like the Russian, Turkish, Belgian leagues. Because I still see that we are like sending our better players to those leagues at the moment. And that to me is an indication that the league is still a little bit behind there. So I think world, at least like comparing to European wise, that's kind of where I see MLS relatively.
A lot of so I'm looking at a lot of these articles that like, oh, let me rank the top 10 statistically, like based off of these statistics. And listen, I'm a nerd. I love a group of numbers just as much as the next guy. But if you're gonna have like these set criteria, that's how everybody needs to look at it. Clearly, they're not doing that. So I think this one, their criteria was like goal difference, top to bottom, how vast is the difference, parity, things like that. To me, when Don Garber said we were going to be a top 5 league in 2022 by 2015, he was indicating that we are going to be a top 5 destination. People are going to want to play here, and people are going to like make this a league that competes consistently with the biggest players in the world. That's what I have to assume that he meant by that. Now here's the deal. He didn't take the spending limit off. We just won our first Champions League. We're nowhere near a top 5 league. I like your tier idea. I like that a lot. I would have to say we're probably in the 10 to 15 range in terms of destination. Now that we've become a selling league instead of a retirement league, I think people are looking at it better. To break into that top 10, we need to be in your prime league. So MLS 5.0, when we get people in their prime, that's what it's got to be.
we get the Insignes like just a little bit earlier.
Yeah, exactly. Right. If you can convince him to come earlier,
Like if they got a Belotti, perfect example. That's MLS
exactly.
5.0.
Yep, absolutely. Couldn't agree more. That's our next step, right? But we need to make that step. And in 2015, I think it was a good idea to say that by 2022 we do that. And we're getting there. It's just a little bit slower than we would expect.
I mean, in full fairness to him, since 2015, I think the league has really ramped up its progression. I think the league was moving super slow. If you look from like the end of the Beckham era up until like 2015, when like NYC was just joining, I think the league progress was moving super slow. If you were to rank it as a number, I think maybe generously it would be in like the 15 to 20 range, probably on the lower
Yeah, I
end of
agree
that.
with that. Right.
But then within like that 2015 to now range,
The other thing that ties into this. Oh, go ahead.
sorry, I think someone froze and we overlapped. I was gonna say between that time period of 2015 to now, the league has really jumped up in progress and like in the direction that it should be moving in, and that's why I was able to jump up in our minds, like essentially that next tier in terms of like how MLS ranks globally, I guess.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. I think the other thing that you need to tie into it is marketability is the phrase I'm going to use. When you think of the top leagues in the world, what's the first one you think of?
Prime.
Correct. Why? Because marketed like better than anything you could have imagined. One, because of the players that they can bring there, because all the money is in football. Two, because of how well it is perceived overseas, right? You get a bunch of people who took it on as a fad back in like 2004, and now they're all diehards. That is a really good way to get things going. So if you want it to be up there in terms of marketability, who do you need to market to, right? So who do you need to convince to be big fans of your league? And for the EPL or the Premier League, for lack of a better term, it was overseas because they had everybody in the palm of their hands. It's like, how does the NFL grow their viewership? Go to London.
Yeah, exactly.
Go to Germany, right? MLS isn't at that point where they need to go overseas. They still need to win the homeland. And that is why we can never be considered a top 5 league until we win the homeland. You won't go to England ever and find one person. I'm sure you will, but it'd be a lot harder to find one person who's like, man, the Prem's garbage. I much prefer watching Italian league or Spanish league versus here. It's like, I'll never watch my local league. I'd rather watch something in a completely different country. You cannot be a top 5 league until you win the homeland.
Yep, fully agree. You're not going to get the respect of people out in other countries if you can't even win over the viewership in your own country, which is like, it's huge. Like the potential that you could win over in your own country in the US here would be massive. Like if you can garner, let's just say like same percentage, I guess, viewership or like following in the US here as they have in England, like with just people that live in England, we would have an absolutely massive league. Like so many people would be watching. So I think the potential is huge if you can win over the local demographic here for the US.
Cool. So yeah, I think it's just you need to win over the homeland before you can ever be considered a top 5 league. Nobody in their right mind would be considered a top 5 league in the world without having the support of their own country. That's just silly.